I love building things. Let's be real. I build a lot of stuff. That doesn't mean everything I've built is equal, especially not for my job. Whenever people ask what I'm most proud of, one project always comes to mind, and it might not be what you think. It's not this channel. It's not the stuff that I've been building at Ping. It's not even Upload thing. It's actually something that I built at Twitch. This project's one of my favorites, not just because it's really cool or fun to use, it's because on both a technical level and on a team organization level, I was able to innovate and make things happen that didn't seem possible before. The number of surreal roadblocks we hit throughout this project made it seem like it was doomed for failure. And not only did it not fail, it ended up being one of the most successful launches in Twitch's history. I am really proud of the work we did on this project. So I'm going to show off a bit of it and why I think it's so cool. Without further ado, this is ModView. And by default, it might not look like much. As we see here, I'm live right now. So if you want to see me making cool stuff like this live on Twitch, make sure you follow me on twitch.tv/Theo, where I'm live every Wednesday making a lot of these videos. This view was built for people like me, but more importantly, my moderators who work really, really hard to make high quality experiences for everyone in chat. If it wasn't for my moderators, I'd probably have to turn off chat because of the amount of chaos that can happen, especially in the Discord. But obviously, on stream, when I'm live to hundreds, if not thousands of people, it's important that chat is presentable. And in order to make that possible, in order to keep things from becoming utter chaos, our moderators need really, really good tools to keep track of the experience. This is the tool that we got the buy-in to build. Before I was working on viewer-facing tools at Twitch, I was actually focused on internal safety tools, building the admin panels that people would use to investigate when a user was reported. Make sure that when someone's reported and they're doing bad content, they were banned. And we made that platform internally really, really good. So good that we looked at the tools moderators had externally and we're like, those should be better too. This came with a lot of gotchas though. In particular, for a moderator to do their job, they need a lot of information that isn't necessarily ours on the safety team. We were very close with the chat team, so we had a lot of capabilities with chat and chat related things, but stuff like whispers, stuff like channel points, stuff like various systems like rating and subscriptions, bits and all of that, we didn't own a lot of that. Hell, we didn't even own the player. And we needed to make a user interface that was fully customizable, where I can take any element here, move them around, resize, I can drop an element in the dock and still have access to it when I need and don't have it here when I don't. Like I don't need predictions, so I'm going to put that there. I do like having mod actions, so I'll put that there. And I do like having the auto mod queue, so I'll put that here too. But the ability to fully customize this, resize things, having all of this control was very hard to do. And we used and built a combination of libraries and integrations, as well as abusing a lot of cool features in React in order to make this possible. The important gotchas to know here are that a lot of these different widgets are made by different teams that work in different ways, that have different opinions about how React should work. So things like support for hooks, external state management so re-renders don't cause things to disappear, a lot of other behaviors were not easy to do. And I wanted things like when I hide and show chat, I don't want the messages to go away, because traditionally on Twitch, when you refresh the page, or this case, re-render a component, all the previous messages were in state. Those all vanish. So we need to make sure when I drag chat over here that we don't lose messages. And when I move it back here, it still behaves as expected. And the ability to customize, resize, and put anything where it makes the most sense is something that our moderators valued highly. We needed to make sure we got this right. We could have went to every team and rewritten all of their code to work with a single shared state manager. We could have done a lot of different things to make this possible, but we had a very short deadline. I had 2 additional engineers and about 6 months to get all of this done. So what did we do? Well, the first thing we did was go all in on hooks and functional programming, because we already were falling in love with these new patterns at the time. This was back in late 2018, early 2019 that we were working really hard on this. And then by the end of 2019, when things really ramped up, we knew it was right to keep using hooks for it. So we went all in on hooks. We went all in on functional programming. We went all in on a composable model to make this possible. We'd also been evaluating other tools that other teams were using. We had gotten pretty close with the dashboard team, which made the Twitch dashboard, which I'm sure you've noticed has a lot in common with ModView. This project was using a library named React Mosaic, an open source thing that is just the resizing and moving of the components in one mosaic-like UI. It has no concept of close and open. It has no concept of use and reuse. And it also remounts all of the children components when you move things around. So if those have state within them and you move them, you're going to lose that state. So as great as it was, it introduce as many problems as it solved, but its capabilities on the UI side were so good that we knew we needed to use it. And I ended up internally forking it in order to add all of the functionality that we needed. On top of that, we used the classic React D&D because that library had a lot of the hooks and core primitives that we needed to build the interactions between things like the widget bar to grab things, the side nav, which everything's reorderable and controllable with. But the most important thing that we got from using React D&D was the ability to interface between React Mosaic and React D&D and our own custom views to drag elements into and out of the React Mosaic. But what about the state? What about the re-renders? Because every time I move a component from here to here or from here to here, that component got unmounted and remounted. It got moved. So how do I manage to persist the state? I could literally talk for hours about how the drag and drop behaviors work. Just know it was hard and that we had to do a lot of work deeply understanding both React Mosaic code that we forked and React D&D code that we kept very up to date on. But we still had to deal with the fact that components unmounting and remounting caused them to lose their state. And since a lot of these components were by teams that weren't us, we couldn't change how their state management worked to move them to a global, so a remount wouldn't break things. So how do we maintain state for things that are like a pub sub or a message system, where if we remount it and we lose the state, we lose all of that content? What if I told you none of these components were actually mounted where they're located? And when I move automod Q, we're not actually moving the automod Q component that is mounted inside of here. We're moving something else. What are we moving though? The component is somewhere else now. So how are we able to move these containers without moving the component itself? Anyone have any ideas? I see it happening in chat. We see people realizing I used a whole bunch of inverse portals in React for this. What we did is we have a hidden element somewhere in the page that's just, it exists in the virtual DOM, not the real DOM, where we mount all of the components that you could possibly have in the view here. Even the ones that aren't mounted now. If I go to add or remove widgets, we'll see there's additional widgets here. Also my really fancy animation that I'm way too proud of where things expand and collapse. Oh, I put way too much time into getting that right. It looks so good. Even at 30 FPS, it looks pretty solid. So we took all of these widgets, we mounted them in a list in the virtual DOM. And when you actually render them, we're just rendering an out portal, which if you're not already familiar with portals, the TLDR is... I can't TLDR portals. I made a video about them already. I'll throw that in the description. The best I can explain portals quickly is that when you define a portal in the React DOM, it lets you put a component wherever. So let's say we have something like, I don't know, a context that we want an element to have access to, but that element might be mounted somewhere else. A really common example of this is a modal. So the modal needs to get props from really deep in your app, but we don't want to render the modal really deep in your app. We want to render the modal at the root so we can handle all the z-index stuff correctly. The way we can get our values, get our context, get whatever we need to that deeply nested component, but actually render it really high out on top is using portals. React portals don't have a formal concept of in and out. They're a weird binding, but there are a couple libraries that make it way easier to work with. I like the idea of an in portal and an out portal. An in portal is the place you mount a component you want to put somewhere else. The out portal is the place where it comes out. So the React DOM, the virtual DOM, sees modal as a child of, in this case, ModView widget container, which funny enough is named very well for what we're talking about now. But when the real DOM renders it, it doesn't render the modal as a child under ModView widget container. It renders it where we put the out portal. So we end up with a much cleaner real DOM that puts the elements different places than we put them in the React DOM, which means we can have 100 things under this in portal and just change where the out portal is located whenever we feel like. And now it doesn't matter if we re-render this or move it or do anything to it because this stays still. And the problem we were having is whenever these moved, they would lose their state because they're being re-rendered. So by putting these in a single stable place, we can now just portal out the content we need into the places that we need it. This was a pattern that I somewhat chaotically proposed because I'd used portals for a few weird things in the past. As soon as I started building with it, I'll be honest, it didn't seem viable. And I was about ready to shut it down before my manager at the time was like, wait, no, this seems like a good idea. Let me take a spin at it. And he dove in, found some dumb mistakes I made, and we actually got it working. So I was blown away that this chaotic proposal I'd come up with ended up working as well as it did. And to this day, it's still the pattern being used to make ModView state persistent regardless of how much you're customizing your UI. And it's the combination of like these patterns, the libraries that we forked and built on top of, and the team genuinely caring and working really hard because we all love moderators. And these moderators, they all work hard. They make the content that we do possible. They keep Twitch safe and they make it a better place. And everyone on the team was fully aligned that moderators deserve better. And that's why we worked as hard as we did to build ModView, because we cared a lot about those users. That's the main reason why this project succeeded, because everyone working on it cared, and the output speaks for itself. This is a dope project that works really well. I'm so proud of the team that built it. I'm so proud we hit impossible deadlines. In fact, more than impossible, I actually had the product manager set the deadline a month early. So we would have that extra month in the end to polish things up, which was huge for us because we were able to make this product really, really good. I have a picture somewhere. I'll try and find it for the editor to sneak in, where I had, I think, 6 laptops and 4 desktops all on my desk, testing against various really large streams with various custom builds of ModView to figure out why we were sometimes memory leaking for really big streamers. And that level of dedication to splitting everything up and manually testing to find whatever we could to make the performance and to make ModView work at the scale of our biggest streamers, it was so much effort, but we did it because we cared so much. And I think it shows in what we built. Enough about me and the cool stuff I've built. What about you? What have you built that you're really proud of? What's the coolest thing you've ever gotten to work on? Tell me about it in the comments. I want to hear all about the cool stuff y'all have built, because that's why we do this, right? To build awesome shit. If you want to learn more about how I set goals and what I do in order to build cool things like this, I'll pin a video in the corner here, because I feel like a lot of people in the dev space in particular kind of suck at goal setting. So I made a video about that. Thank you guys as always. Really appreciate y'all. Peace, nerds.